My first movie. I was 5 years old. Remember, we lived on a farm, close to a small town. In that town, there was no place to watch a movie. There was no movie theater anywhere close. But one time, a movie did come to the town. They were showing the movie in the town hall. This was a big event. I had never seen a movie before. I remember my mother telling me we were going to go watch a real movie on a big screen. At that time, all I had ever seen was a television, and our TV didn't have any color. It was only black and white. So everybody was excited to go see the movie in the town hall. I still remember the name of the movie. It's called Born Free, and it's the story about people in Africa taking care of mother and baby lions. It's a really, really good movie. I can never forget it. But what the most incredible thing for me was when we went into the town hall and everybody was sitting down and they started the movie, it was in color. Everything was big and bright and beautiful and in beautiful colors. I had never imagined that a movie would even be in color. Wow. I sat there and thought, this is just amazing. That was my first movie, Born Free, the story of a mother and baby lions in Africa. I'll never ever forget going to that town hall to watch that movie. Joy, do you remember what the first movie was you watched in a movie theater? Hello, Joy. Here's my story called My First Bike Ride. I was 3 years old. My sister was 4 years old. She had a bicycle. I didn't have a bicycle. Her bicycle looked just like Joy's bicycle. It had 2 big wheels and 2 small wheels on the back for balance. Every day I asked my sister if I could ride her bicycle. I was jealous. She had a bicycle and I didn't. And every day she said, no, I couldn't ride her bicycle. But every day I asked and asked. And finally, one day she said, yes, I could ride her bicycle. But there was just one problem. I didn't know how to ride a bicycle. But I thought, I'll try anyway. I jumped on her bicycle and away I went. I knew how to push the pedals to make the bicycle go, but I quickly ran into a problem. I made the bicycle go fast, and then I started going downhill on a steep road. The bicycle went faster and faster. I didn't know how to stop the bicycle. I got scared and tried to turn the bicycle. Of course, the bicycle fell over. I fell off the bicycle and hit my stomach really hard. I couldn't breathe. I stood up, trying to catch my breath, and I started crying. I ran back up the hill, leaving my sister's bicycle at the bottom of the hill, laying on its side. I was still crying, and I ran back home to find my mom. That was the story of my first bicycle ride. Ben Nevis. What or who is Ben Nevis? Well, Ben is a man's name, but Ben in Scottish also means mountain. So Ben Nevis means Mount Nevis. Ben Nevis is the highest mountain in the United Kingdom. Of course, it's also the highest mountain in Scotland. I was standing at the bottom of Ben Nevis. It was August. The day was warm and sunny and bright and beautiful. I thought, since I'm at the bottom of Ben Nevis, I guess I'll climb to the top of Ben Nevis. Ben Nevis isn't that high if you compare it to the mountains around the world, but it's still pretty high, about 1,500 meters. It goes up in the air. There was a sign at the bottom of Ben Nevis that said, "Warning, the weather at the top can be similar to Arctic conditions," which means below zero, really cold and really windy. And every year, a few people get blown off the mountain and die because the winds are so strong at the top. I thought, it shouldn't be like that. It's a nice, warm, summer, sunny day. Well, I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and I had a backpack with a light jacket in. And I thought, okay, let's do it. It's supposed to take about 6 to 8 hours to climb to the top of Ben Nevis and climb back down. Off I went, walking, and up I went. As I was walking, though, I saw a lot of people that had a lot more clothes on than I did, and big hiking boots and warm winter jackets and walking sticks. I thought, those people don't really need that, do they? We're just going to the top of Ben Nevis. Well, a few hours later, making butter. When I was young, I lived on a farm. Now, if I want to get some milk or some butter, I just go to the store and I buy some. But when I was young, the only milk we had came from our cow. Every morning and every night, my uncle or me would go to the barn and we had to milk the cow. We would get the milk straight from the cow, super fresh, super delicious. I discovered one thing when I was young. I could use that milk and I could make my own butter, and it was really easy. After the milk came from the cow, we would put it in jars, big jars. And after waiting a little while, the milk and the cream would separate. So on the top of the milk would be a little thin layer of cream. I would take that cream off and I would put it into a glass jar. Then I would put the lid on the jar, and all I had to do now was shake the cream. Shake and shake and shake and shake and shake. And after a few minutes, guess what happened? The cream turned into butter. Really fresh, nice, good tasting, beautiful looking butter. I would put a little bit of salt on it, and then I would take the fresh butter and put it on my bread or my pancakes or whatever I wanted. It was a lot of fun making my own butter. I think we should try to make some, Joy. What do you think? Broken collarbone. I was 4. I was very active. I liked to run around and jump around and play around all day long. One day, I was jumping up and down on my mother's bed, just like Joy likes to jump up and down on the sofa. Well, I was jumping and jumping and jumping, but I had a little bit of a problem. I jumped up and I jumped down and I fell off the bed on my head and I broke my collarbone. The collarbone is that bone up close to your neck. It's really easy to feel. Well, I started crying because it really, really hurt. And my mother took me to the doctor. At that time, when you broke your collarbone, the doctor put a big thing all around your body, like a lot of tape to hold the bone in place. And I just remember it was so hot and so uncomfortable. It was like wearing a tight sweater all day long, and I hated it. It was itchy, and I would sweat inside it, and I couldn't move, and the collarbone was hurting. Wow, that taught me a lesson. I need to be more careful when I'm jumping up and down. Unfortunately, I broke my collarbone again about 20 years later. But that's another story. Dog bite. I was about 11 years old. At this time, we were living in a small city. Our neighbors had a small dog. Now, this dog wasn't really mean, but it really liked to chase children. What we would do for fun is we would climb over the fence and jump into the neighbor's yard. Then we would see how far into the neighbor's yard we could walk before the dog saw us and started chasing us. Then we would run, and jump back over the fence into our yard, and we were safe. Well, one day, or actually it was night, I jumped into the yard, but when the dog started chasing me, I didn't run away fast enough. It caught me, and it started biting my foot. Now, the dog wasn't really big, but it seemed like it was really mean at that time. It was biting and biting my shoe, and I was kicking and kicking, trying to get away from the dog. Finally, it ripped my shoe completely open, and it actually bit into my foot. I kicked hard enough and finally ran away from the dog and jumped over the fence. But now I had a big problem. Actually, I had more than one problem. Number one, my shoe was broken. It was ripped wide open. I knew my mother would be really angry about that. We didn't have a lot of money, and so I knew she didn't want to spend more money on new shoes for me. Number two, we weren't supposed to be jumping into the neighbor's yard, so we were going to get into trouble for that. And number three, my foot was actually bleeding. I got a little bit of a cut from the dog when he bit my shoe. Wow, this was a big problem. I knew I couldn't lie to my mother, so I guess I would just have to go home and tell her the truth. I can't really remember what happened, but I do remember my mother going over to the neighbor and talking to them about their dog. I probably got a new pair of shoes too. Shortly after that, the neighbor and their small dog moved away, so we couldn't do that kind of fun anymore. What about you, Joy? Have you ever been chased by a dog? The egg snowball fight. I was 5. One day, my mother took me to visit her friend. They lived on a small farm. There was another boy there about the same age as me. They had chickens. Those chickens every day laid eggs. Every day they would collect about 10 or 15 or 20 eggs from their chickens. They could eat some or they could sell some. The chickens lived in a little barn called a coop, C-O-O-P. That day, my new friend and I decided to go into the chicken coop and start picking the eggs. Look at all these eggs. What can we do with them? I know. Let's have an egg snowball fight. We started picking the eggs and throwing them at one another. Throw, splat, throw, splat. And then we got so excited we started throwing the eggs around the inside of the chicken coop at the walls. Throw, splat, throw, splat. Broken eggs all over the place. We thought it was great fun until the door opened and in walked his mother and my mother. Oh boy, they weren't happy. As a matter of fact, they were really angry. I remember the lady getting really angry at my mother too. Those were their eggs, and they needed those eggs to eat and to sell. Well, my mother ended up having to pay that lady for all of those eggs we broke. I learned a good lesson that day. One, if it's not my property, I shouldn't be taking it. 2, even if it's just an egg, it might be valuable for somebody else. Ernie Mac. Ernie Mac was a nice guy. He worked pretty hard at what he did. But Ernie Mac was known for one thing. He told tall tales. A tall tale is a nice way of saying he was telling lies. Ernie Mac lived in the same town his entire adult life. Everybody knew Ernie. Everybody knew the job that he did. His life was a regular person's life. But when Ernie started telling his tall tales, everybody sort of looked around and went, "Uh-oh, here we go again." Ernie was famous for it. One time he told the story that he had to climb to the top of a tower 300 feet tall in the air just to change a light bulb at the top. Nobody else would do it. They were all too scared. And it took him so long he had to take his lunch and his dinner. That was a pretty good story. But everybody knew it wasn't true because everybody knew Ernie. Another time he said him and his brother were in New York City. They were walking down the street in front of Trump Towers. Mr. Donald Trump came out, and Ernie Mac said, "I said hello to Mr. Trump. My name's Ernie, and I'm from Canada. This is my brother." Mr. Trump said, "Hey guys, let me take you to lunch." And off they went, and they had lunch with Ernie Mac. But everybody knew it wasn't true because everybody knew Ernie. What some of us used to do, which wasn't really very nice, is we would make a plan and we would say, "You talk about motorcycles, I'll talk about horses, and you talk about airplanes. And let's see what kind of stories Ernie Mac comes up with." Okay, I'll start. We were in a room. I told a story about riding horses when I was a boy on the farm. Ernie Mac jumped up and said, "That's nothing. I was a rodeo cowboy for 8 years in North America. I traveled all over the place attending rodeos." Okay. We all just sort of put our heads down and smiled a little bit. Another time, one person said that they were looking at a nice motorcycle to drive. Ernie Mac said, "Well, I was a professional motorcycle racer for 6 years. I can help you pick out a motorcycle." Everybody looked down and did the same thing, kind of smiled to themselves. One thing I often felt odd was nobody ever told Ernie, "Look, Ernie Mac, we all know you're telling tall tales. Why don't you just stop it? You're a nice guy. We like you. You don't have to do that." But in the end, he just couldn't. And now, the sad thing is, nobody really remembers Ernie Mac for Ernie Mac. They only remember him because of the lies and the tall tales he told. That's a pretty sad way to end up. People only remembering you because you're a liar and not because you told the truth. I guess it's always better to tell the truth. Don't be an Ernie Mac. Ghost story. This is a true story. I was 5 or 6 years old. I think I was in grade 1 or 2. I can't really remember that well. We lived in a small house. It only had 2 little bedrooms, 1 kitchen, and 1 living room. It was really small. One night, my sister was sleeping in 1 bedroom. I was in the other bedroom with my mother. We were reading a book. She closed the book after she finished reading and turned off the lights, and we laid down to go to sleep. We could see from the bedroom out into the living room. Suddenly, and it was all dark, we could see a little girl dressed in white sitting in the chair in the living room. I wasn't scared. I pointed to the little girl and said to my mother, "Is that Debbie?" My sister. My mother said, "No, it's not." We looked, and the little girl, dressed all in white, was just sitting in the chair. Suddenly, she just went away. I asked my mother, "What happened? What's going on? What is that?" But my mother didn't really say anything. That's about all I remember from that night. But I never forget. I can never, ever forget the little girl dressed in white sitting on the chair in the living room in the middle of the night. What do you think, Joy? Do you think that was a real ghost? I think it was. Ghost Story 2. This is a true story. I was in Scotland. Scotland is a country on the island of Great Britain. Great Britain has 3 countries: Scotland, England, and Wales. Great Britain is part of the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has 4 countries: Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. I was in Scotland and living with my grandmother. My grandmother's house had 2 floors, the first floor and upstairs the second floor. Because my grandmother was old, she only lived on the first floor. She was unable to walk up the stairs to the second floor. Upstairs, there were 2 small bedrooms. There was nobody else living in the house, only myself and my grandmother. The very first night I was there, I was quite tired from traveling. I got into the house and late at night took all of my things upstairs and got ready to go to sleep. It was about 11 o'clock at night. I laid down on the bed, finally ready for a good night's sleep. Suddenly, there was a knock. I thought, that's strange. I didn't hear anybody come into the house, and the knock sounded like it came from the door to the bedroom or the wall or the ceiling. I didn't really know where the knock came from. There may have been a second knock, but I can't really remember. I lay in bed thinking, my grandmother can't walk up the stairs. It's not her knocking. I didn't hear anybody else come into the house. What's going on? I got up out of bed, opened the bedroom door, and looked into the other room. There was nobody in there. There was nobody upstairs at all except for me. I went downstairs. There was nobody in the house except me and my sleeping grandmother. How strange, I thought. I went to sleep. The next day, I went to my cousin's home for breakfast. As we were sitting at the table, I said to my cousin, "Something really strange happened last night." She said, "Stop, don't tell me. Was there a knocking on the door?" I said, "How do you know?" She told me the story. Every time somebody new comes to stay at Grandma's house, the very first night, everybody hears a knocking. And after the first night, there's no more knocking. Wow, I thought, that's amazing. This has happened to many, many people before, not just me. What a great story. What do you think, Joy? Do you think that was a real ghost knocking on the door? I do. The giant. Joy, do you believe there are real giants? Let me tell you a story. A long time ago, Kuga moved to a little town in Saskatchewan called Willow Bunch. Willow Bunch is an interesting name. I like the name Willow and Bunch, 2 words put together to make one word, Willow Bunch. Maybe you can practice writing it today. WILLOWBUNCH. Anyway, Willow Bunch is famous for one thing. Willow Bunch is the home of the Willow Bunch giant. Yes, there was a real giant, and he came from Willow Bunch. About 100 years ago, a small boy was born in Willow Bunch. His name was Andre. Soon it was very clear that Andre was a very unusual boy. When he was only 9 years old, he was already 180 centimeters tall. By the time he was a grown man, he was 251 centimeters tall. He was a really, really true giant, the tallest man in the world, they thought. Because Andre was so tall and a real giant, people wanted to see him. So he traveled to many places in Canada and North America so people could see him. In Willow Bunch, where Kuga lived, there's a museum all about the Willow Bunch giant. And outside the museum, there's a statue of Andre. And you can stand beside the statue and see how tall he really was. Andre, the Willow Bunch giant. High-heeled shoe. I was 9 years old. I had a brand new little brother. He was probably about 4 or 5 or 6 months old. Like all little babies, he cried a lot, especially at night. He would cry and cry and cry all night long. His crib was in my bedroom. A crib is a baby's bed with high sides to protect the baby from falling out. Well, one night I was trying to sleep, and my baby brother Robert was crying and crying and crying and crying, and his cries were really, really loud. Oh, I got frustrated. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't sleep, and he kept crying and crying. I jumped up and I ran over to the crib, and I guess I was a little bit crazy. I started shaking him. Be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. I'm trying to sleep. Can't you just stop crying? Uh-oh. I guess my mother heard that. She came flying into the room. And this is the weird thing. She had a shoe in one hand. Now her shoes weren't flat-bottom shoes. Her shoes all had high heels. Oh, she was angry. She was crazy, like a mother bear protecting her baby bears. She started pushing at me and hitting me on the head with the high-heeled shoe. Get away from him, get away from him. Whack, whack, whack. The heel hitting me on the top of the head. Oh no, I started backing out of the room. Whack, whack, whack. Stop hitting your brother. Whack, whack, whack. The shoe hitting me on the top of the head. I kept backing up and backing up. Stop, stop, stop. Whack, whack, whack. Until I got to the stairs. We were on the second floor. The stairs went down to the first floor. Whack, whack, whack. I went backwards and then I fell down the stairs. I rolled all the way down to the first floor. Boom, 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 down the stairs. It wasn't really too bad because the stairs had carpet on them, so they were a little bit soft. Whew, I was safe at last. My head hurt a little bit. I can't remember getting hurt from falling down the stairs, but I guess I'll just have to learn to let my baby brother cry himself to sleep every night. I hope I could get used to it. Horsing around. I was at my neighbor's farm. They had a horse. It was a stallion. A stallion is a boy horse. It was big and strong and mean. It was a scary horse. This horse would always run away, so they had it tied up to a big, strong steel post. There was a long rope going from its head to the post, so it could still walk around a little bit and eat. One day, my friend and I decided we would tease the horse. We were throwing rocks at its bum to make it angry. Well, the horse got angry. It got so angry, it broke the rope and ran away. Uh-oh, this is big trouble. If my friend's father finds out we were teasing the horse and made it angry, we would be in big trouble. We needed to catch the horse. Well, we ran into the field after the horse. I got close to it and grabbed onto its head. Just at that time, the horse jumped up in the air. It threw me high in the air and injured all of the muscles in my back. I landed on the ground. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't walk. Uh-oh, this isn't good. I could breathe, finally, just a little bit, short breaths, like that. I knew I had to get home, but it was a long way, about 1 kilometer through the fields. I couldn't walk. I had to crawl on my hands and knees all the way back home. It took me about 2 hours. When I got home, my mother had to take me to the hospital. It was a pretty big injury, and it took me about 1 month before I was back to normal. I learned something from that injury. I learned, don't horse around with crazy horses. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I was 5 years old. We were visiting my grandmother. She lived in a small town, in a small house, the same house where my mother and I saw the little ghost girl sitting in the chair. This town was so small, it only had 1 store and 1 cafe. A cafe is like a small restaurant, and 1 small hotel, and 1 gas station. That was about it. The small shop, though, sold ice cream and ice cream cones. When we were 5 and lived on the farm, we never got to eat ice cream. Ice cream was a big treat for us. One evening, my grandmother gave my sister and I 5 cents each so we could walk up to the shop and get some ice cream. Away we went, walking up the street. It seemed like a long way for us, but it really wasn't that far. My sister got her ice cream in the ice cream cone, and I got my ice cream in the ice cream cone. We started walking back to my grandmother's house, licking our ice cream cone and maybe chatting happily. I can't really remember. I do know, though, that we started running. I'm not too sure why we started running. Suddenly, my ice cream, and this was probably the first ice cream cone I ever had, the ice cream fell out of my cone onto the ground. Oh no. There I was, standing there, looking at the empty cone in my hand and the ice cream on the ground. I was so upset. I remember my sister maybe laughing at me, and she ran away. I just stood there looking at my ice cream on the ground. I started crying because I didn't think I would be able to get another ice cream cone. Oh, I was so disappointed that my first great ice cream cone adventure ended up in a little bit of a sad disaster. Anyway, I walked back home and I still had the ice cream cone to eat, so it wasn't all bad after all. Jellyfish. I was at the beach. I was swimming in the ocean. Where I come from, there's no ocean close by, so I don't really know much about the ocean, except that it's big, it has sharks, big waves, and, as I learned, jellyfish. I was in the water, and it was just so beautiful and comfortable and warm. Suddenly, I had a feeling on my leg. It felt like electricity. Zzz, zzz. I thought, how strange. How can there be electricity in the ocean? Then, 1 second later, boom! Oh, the pain was going up my leg and all the way up inside my shorts, even to my bum. I lifted my leg out of the water and I saw lots of long white things. They looked like glass noodles, like mianxian. I started grabbing them with my fingers, but then my fingers started to hurt. Suddenly I realized, this is a jellyfish. I just got stung by a jellyfish. Wow, the pain was getting worse and worse. I ran out of the water and I didn't know what to do. There was a person on the beach and I asked him, what can I do? I just got stung by a jellyfish. Well, he told me about the traditional cure for what to do when you get bit by a jellyfish, but there was no way I could do that. Anyway, I sat on the beach and all around me, other people were getting stung by the jellyfish too. There were even some people crying because it really, really hurts a lot. After about 1 hour or so, the pain went away, but I still had some big red marks on my leg from the jellyfish stinging me. Do you know some jellyfish are so poisonous they can kill people? Anyway, now when I go to the ocean, I always look around to see if there are any jellyfish. Could I have this dance? I was 11 years old, I think in grade 7. At that time, my school every month would have a dance for the children in grade 7 and grade 8. I was a really tiny guy, really small, the smallest in my class. And I was pretty shy too. Well, I remember going to the dance, and the dance was in the auditorium, the school gymnasium. It was in the evening, maybe 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Everybody was kind of shy. All of the girls sat on one side of the gym, and all of the boys sat on the other. And if the boy could have some courage, he would walk over to the girl and say, would you like to dance with me? And then the music was always playing, and we would start dancing. Wow, I was pretty tiny, pretty small, so I couldn't ask any of the taller girls to dance. That was a little embarrassing. Well, there was one cute girl over there. I think her name was I can't really remember. Anyway, I finally got the courage. I walked over and said, can I dance with you? And she said, okay. So we walked to the middle of the floor, and there were other people dancing too. It was a little bit dark inside. I was still quite nervous. So we danced. I don't know what kind of dancing we did. Moving to the music, I guess. And dancing and dancing and dancing. And I thought, this is kind of cool. She's quite nice. Maybe. Well, I just remember this now. I looked at her and said, can I kiss you? Oh, her eyes got big. She looked at me and turned around and ran away. Oh boy, I'm so embarrassed. What can I do now? I just kind of put my head down and walked back to the boys' side of the gymnasium and sat down. I hope she doesn't tell any of her friends. I'll be so embarrassed. Well, that's about all I remember of that dance. It was a little bit funny, I guess. But we had lots of those dances after that, and it was a lot of fun too. There's one more part to this story too, but I'll tell you that later. Mr. Robinson. I was about 12 years old. Mr. Robinson was my grade 6 teacher. He was an older guy, a big guy, a little bit mean, and a little bit cuckoo because he was in the war when he was young. One thing Mr. Robinson did that the other teachers didn't do is if the students were naughty, he would hit them with a yardstick. A yardstick is a big, long piece of wood used for measuring things. It's not really heavy, but it can hurt a little bit. Mr. Robinson's style was this. If you were naughty in class, he would say, "Okay, go outside the classroom." We had to go outside the classroom and he would say, "Turn around and put your hands up on the wall," just like a policeman. Then he would take the yardstick and hit you on the bum. Whack! But usually the first hit was really, really soft. I think he didn't really like to hit the students, but it was just his way of having some discipline. He would ask you, "Does it hurt?" If you said, "No," whack, he would hit you again. "Does it hurt now?" "No, Mr. Robinson, it doesn't hurt." Whack! "Does it hurt now?" "Yes, Mr. Robinson, it hurts." Even if it didn't hurt, as long as you said, "Yes, Mr. Robinson, it hurts," he would let you go back into the classroom. I only got the yardstick one time. I was a pretty good student. And even then, I think he only hit me once, really softly, and said, "Does it hurt?" I said, "Yes, Mr. Robinson, it hurts." "Okay, go back into the classroom." We had a really good relationship. He used to give me money to go to the store at break time sometimes and buy him some snacks and things. Also, and this is another story, Mr. Robinson was the school shooting teacher. This is interesting. We learned how to shoot guns at our school. We had a shooting class in elementary school, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, I still remember Mr. Robinson, and I still have good memories about him. Pig vaccination. You know, when babies are born, we always have to go to get vaccinated. 2 months old, 6 months old, 1 year old. All human people need to get vaccinated. And of course, nowadays, everybody's talking about vaccinations. But did you know baby pigs also need to be vaccinated? And vaccinating baby pigs can be a little bit dangerous. How can it be dangerous? Baby pigs are tiny and cute and small. Yes, that's true, but baby pigs live with mother pig, and mother pig does not like anyone coming close to her babies. She'll get really, really angry. Actually, when we vaccinate baby pigs, we have to do another thing at the same time. We have to cut off its teeth. What? Yes, baby pigs have really, really sharp teeth. So at the same time we go into the pig pen to vaccinate the baby pigs, we also take a pair of snippers and we clip the baby pig's teeth. Usually 4, sometimes 8 teeth, because they're really sharp and they'll hurt the mother. But back to the vaccination. Now, I was always a little bit nervous when we had to vaccinate the baby pigs, because mother pigs are really big and really strong. Well, we had a special tool to capture the mother pig and hold her while somebody else went into the pig pen and vaccinated the pigs. Holding the mother pig was usually my job. But I was quite young and not as strong as I am now. We would snare the mother pig around the nose or around the neck and hold her as somebody else went into the pig pen and grabbed the baby pigs one at a time, cut the teeth, clip, 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 and gave the pig the vaccination. Of course, whenever the needle went into the baby pig, it would make a pig noise, and that would make the mother pig even more angrier. Oh, I remember having to hold on to that mother pig while she fought and screamed and tried to pull away. It was really, really tense. And we didn't have to do it just one time. Maybe we had 10 mother pigs, and each mother pig had 10 babies. It was a big job and a tiring job, vaccinating baby pigs. But it keeps them healthy, so they grow up big and strong, just like vaccinations keep us healthy so that we can grow up big and strong too. It was an exciting time vaccinating the baby pigs. Riding the bull. When most people think about riding a bull, they think that bulls are big and strong and scary, just like the cowboys in the rodeo when they ride the bulls. Those bulls are big and strong and fast and can injure people. But when I was young, we used to ride a bull all the time just for fun. My neighbors on the farm had 2 bulls. One bull was just like the kind we usually think about, big and strong and scary. Nobody would go near that bull because that bull would chase you around the field. We stayed away from him. But they had another bull that was as gentle as a little lamb. He would let as many children as could climb on his back get on and take him around for a ride. Sometimes 5 or 6 of us would climb up on that bull's back, and we would grab his tail and twist his tail just to make him run around the field. We thought it was great fun. That bull, I think, really loved us. But because he was such a gentle bull, the other bull kind of bullied him. And I'm not trying to be funny by using that word. The other bull treated him really badly. So eventually, my friends had to get rid of that bull because he didn't really do too much on the farm. But I can tell you, it was a lot of fun climbing up on that big bull's back with all of my friends and walking around the field. What great times that was. Saving the kitten. I was on the farm feeding the pigs. The pigs were inside the barn. The barn was a big building made of wood. The pigs lived inside the barn. One morning, I was feeding the pigs, and while I was feeding them their food, I could hear a kitten. Meow, meow, meow. I thought, that's strange. Why is there a kitten in the barn with the pigs? Well, I looked around and I could hear the kitten, meow, 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 but I couldn't see the kitten. How strange, I thought. I kept feeding the pigs, and when I came back to the one spot, I could always hear the kitten, meow, 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 but I couldn't see it. I looked inside the barn, and then I thought, well, maybe it's outside the barn. I went outside the barn, meow, meow, meow. I could still hear the kitten, but I couldn't see the kitten. What's going on? Then I thought about something. The barn is a big building, and it's made of wood. The walls are made of wood. There's wood on the outside, and there's wood on the inside. But in the middle of the wall, there's nothing. It's empty. And the barn was really tall, 2 stories. I thought, maybe the kitten is inside the wall. I climbed upstairs to the barn where I could look down inside the wall. And yes, sure enough, there was the kitten way down inside the wall. It was a little kitten and it couldn't get out. Meow, meow, meow. It was scared. Oh no, how were we going to save the kitten? I called my uncle over and said, hey, there's a kitten stuck in the wall. What should we do? We thought and we thought, and then we came up with this idea. Kittens like to grab on things like strings and pieces of stuff that they can play. So we took a long piece of string and we tied a little piece of wood onto it. We put the string and the wood inside the wall all the way down, and we bounced it in front of the kitten. Finally, it grabbed onto the string and onto the piece of wood. We started pulling the string and the wood and the kitten up out of the wall. Pull, pull, pull. The kitten got higher. Hang on, kitten, hang on, don't fall off. Pull, pull, pull. We were like fishermen pulling a fish out of the ocean. Pull, pull, pull. Hang on, kitten. Finally, the kitten came out of the wall and we saved the little kitten. I think the kitten was quite happy. After that, we gave the kitten a bowl of fresh milk. The scary cows. I was 4. My sister was 5. We had just moved to the farm. We moved from a city, so I didn't know anything about farms. I didn't know anything about animals or cows or pigs or horses or chickens or tractors or growing food, nothing like that. I remember the first or second day we were on the farm. My uncle had to go out to the field to check on something with the cows. My sister and I wanted to go for a ride in the truck. So the 3 of us drove off to the pasture. A pasture is just a big field where cows can walk around all day long, eating grass and getting fat. So we drove into the field, and my uncle left my sister and I sitting in the truck while he went walking out into the field to do whatever it was he had to do. Well, the cows are a little bit smart. When they saw my uncle's truck, they thought, maybe there's food coming. So all of the cows started walking towards the truck. Now remember, my sister and I had never, ever been close to a cow before, and we were little, and they seemed really big. Soon they were getting closer and closer, and we were starting to get a little bit scared. Then they got right up to the truck, and we got really scared. We started screaming for my uncle, screaming and screaming, help, 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 because we thought the cows were going to do something. I don't know what. We had over 100 cows on that farm, so by this time there were lots and lots of cows all around the truck, and my sister and I were terrified, screaming and crying for my uncle. He came running back, saw that we were scared of the cows, and got a little bit upset. He just told us there's nothing to be scared of. The cows won't hurt us. I really, really remember that day. I remember it well because it was the first time I had been that close to big cows. It was the first time I was in a truck, and it was the first time I was in a pasture, a field on a big farm in Canada. What do you think, Joy? Do you think you would have been scared of the cows too? The Snowy Owl. This is just a story. It's a story about an owl, a snowy owl, but it's also a story about nature. I love nature. I love being outside. I love being outside in nature, in the forest or in the mountains or by the ocean. When I was young, I used to go outside in Saskatchewan quite often, hunting for different types of animals. One winter, I was out by myself walking through the forest looking for rabbits. Rabbits in the wintertime are very hard to find because their fur turns white, so it's very difficult to find them in the snow. I was walking through the forest on this trail in the deep snow. Everything was really, really quiet. There was no wind. There was no sound. It was beautiful. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. I was walking through the snow, looking to the left, looking to the right, looking in front of me. When you're trying to find rabbits in the wintertime, the only thing you can look for are their little black eyes, or the tips of their ears sometimes still have a little bit of black fur. Suddenly, from above my head, a huge snowy owl flew right over my head and dropped right down in front of me. Whoosh! With this sound almost like an airplane passing over me, but it was just an air sound. Whoosh! I was so startled. I jumped back. Holy cow, what was that? Wow, it was amazing. That owl dropped right over my head and right down in front of me. I think the owl was saying to me, "Hey, mister, this is my territory. I'm out here looking for rabbits too. You're in my forest." I just looked at the owl as it flew away through the trees, and I thought, I just got to see one of the most beautiful animals in nature. It was amazing. A great big white with some gray on it, beautiful snowy owl. I can never forget that. Tastes like soap. Well, I was about 11 years old, maybe 12, not really that big. Anyway, one day, my mother and I got into an argument. I can't even remember what we were talking about, but I guess I walked outside of the house and I was still quite upset. She was really upset too. She was standing at the door looking out at me. I turned around and I said a really, really bad word, maybe 2 bad words. I was far enough away that she didn't hear them, but, some people can understand what you're saying when they look at your mouth move. Uh-oh, that really, really made her angry. She told me to get inside the house immediately. Whew, I became a little bit scared. She took me into the house, and this is a true story. She dragged me into the bathroom, and she grabbed a bar of soap, and she made me eat the soap. "I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap," for saying those bad words. Well, she used to say that all the time. "I'll wash your mouth out with soap if you use bad words." But this is the first time she really, really did it. Whew, let me tell you, after you eat some soap, it takes a long time to get the soap taste out of your mouth. I think that was the only time I ever said bad words to my mother. So I guess I learned my lesson. My first stitches. To stitch something means to fix it using a needle and thread. Sometimes your mother will fix your clothing if there's a hole in it using a needle and thread. We can also fix our skin like this if we get cut. This is also called getting stitches. My first stitches happened when I was 6 years old. At that time, I could ride a bike really well, and I loved to ride my bike. All day long, I would ride my bike around the little town we were living in. But there was something different about this little town. None of the roads had blacktop like the roads in the city. All of the roads were covered with little stones called gravel. It was fun to ride a bike on the gravel roads, but it was a little bit difficult because it was easy for the bike to slide out and fall over. So we had to be really careful when we were riding our bikes. Well, one day I was riding my bike. I can't remember if I was with my friends or not. And I was driving quite quickly, and my bike slipped out and fell over. I put my hands out to stop myself from falling onto the gravel road, but I hit quite hard and my left hand got cut. I remember looking at the cut as I was sitting on the road and seeing a bunch of little stones inside my skin. I got scared. I didn't know what to do. I remember it was close to my home, so I ran home and showed my mother the cut on my hand. Well, it seemed like a pretty big cut for a small guy, so my mother decided to take me to the doctor. But there was one problem. We lived in a small town, far away from any doctor or any hospital. So we got in the car and we had to drive about 30 minutes to get to the nearest doctor. I remember being really scared when I held out my hand and the doctor had to put a needle in my hand to stop the pain. After he did that, which was scary, he started to clean all of the little stones out of the cut in my hand. After he got everything cleaned out, then he started to do the stitches. He took a small curved needle and some dark thread. The thread is like the string. Then he stuck this needle into my skin on both sides of the cut and pulled the cut together with the stitch. This was really, really scary to me. It was the first time I had ever seen that. And even though it didn't really hurt, I think I cried a lot. Well, I guess the cut wasn't that big because I only got 2 stitches this time. I still have the scar on my hand, and I'm going to send you a picture of exactly what it looks like now. That was my first stitches. I've had many, many stitches after that. What about you, Joy? Have you had any stitches? The Water Boy. I was 5. We were living on the farm. There are lots of things to do on the farm every day, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. Every morning, one of the things we had to do, or rather my uncle had to do, was get water from the well. A well is a deep hole in the ground that water comes from. Good, clean, natural water. Our well was beside the barn. The barn was a long way from the house. We had to walk over a big hill and down the big hill to get to the barn, and the well was beside the barn. Every morning we would go and feed the pigs in the barn, and then my uncle would fill up a big pail with fresh water from the well. There was a pump handle on the well, and you had to pump it up and down, up and down, up and down, and fill up the bucket with the water. It was heavy. Well, I wanted to help. Every morning I saw my uncle carrying the water back to the house. I can do it too. Okay, let's try. My uncle filled up the bucket with water, and I tried to pick it up. Uh-oh, it was heavy. My uncle was big and young and strong. He could pick it up in one hand. I couldn't pick it up in 2 hands. Well, I could a little bit. But when I tried to walk with the bucket, water splashed all over the place. Well, that was no good. I wasn't big enough or strong enough to help carry the water bucket. But I had a dream, and my dream was one day to be as big and strong as my uncle, so that I could carry the water bucket too. I think I achieved my dream. The winter with no snow. I come from Canada. I come from a place in Canada called Saskatchewan. In Saskatchewan, in the summer, it's really hot. But in the winter, it's really cold. And it snows a lot. In Saskatchewan, it usually starts snowing in October, and it snows in October and November and December and January and February and March. And usually in March, it stops snowing and the weather gets warmer and the snow starts to melt and spring comes. But one winter, it didn't snow at all. I was about 11 years old. And at that time, we were living in a place where I could ride my bicycle to school every day. But of course, when winter came and it started to snow, we couldn't ride our bicycles to school anymore. But one year, it didn't snow. It got really cold, but it didn't snow. This was great for us because we could keep riding our bicycles to school. But something else interesting happened. There was a lake close to our house, and because it didn't snow, but it got cold, the lake turned to ice. But the ice was beautiful and clear and clean, like a big piece of glass. And we could ride our bicycles on the lake, and we could see straight through the ice into the lake water below. And it was fun riding our bicycles on the lake because it was slippery and slidey, and we had lots of fun. Another interesting thing happened the winter it didn't snow. In the wintertime, some animals change color, usually from brown to white. So all of the rabbits in Saskatchewan turned white, but there was no snow for them to hide in. So if you were out in the fields, it suddenly became very easy to see the rabbits because they were white and all of the fields around them were brown. We have an animal called a weasel. It's like a squirrel, and it turns white in the wintertime too. Those were really easy to see. That was quite interesting, the winter it didn't snow. We thought it was a lot of fun. It probably wasn't much fun for the animals that turned white when everything around them was brown. I hope you enjoyed my story.